Tonight, we have a very special guest with us from Israel. Gil Hoffman has been the chief political correspondent and analyst for the Jerusalem Post for the past 20 years. He teaches international communications at Israel's College of Management, and he also hosts a weekly radio show on the Land of Israel network. He is well connected to both Israeli leaders, Palestinian leaders. He's interviewed every major player across the Israeli political spectrum and has been interviewed by top media on 6 continents as a regular analysis on Israel and what is going on in the Middle East. He is called the most optimistic man in Israel. Hopefully tonight we'll find out why. He'll provide for us an understanding of what is going on. And there's so much going on. There's always a lot going on in Israel. It's always in the news. Well, there's a lot of political news going on in Israel today. As I wrote in one of my emails, it seems to be take 1, take 2, and about to be take 3. Some would say strike 1, strike 2, and then the pitcher is ready to pitch, and we don't know what will come out of the pitcher's hand. There is always Iran in the news, Turkey is in the news, Syria is always in the news, Hamas is in the news, Abbas is in the news. And as I always like to say to groups when we take them on trips to Israel, the most important question when you're visiting Israel is which falafel stand by far is the best falafel stand in all of Israel. That always creates far more controversy than anything else. Gil is a veteran of the IDF Spokesman's Unit. He's lectured in every major English-speaking country in the world, more than half the Canadian provinces, and recently made history in Hawaii when he became the first speaker to lecture about Israel in all 50 United States. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gil Hoffman.
Thank you so much, Rabbi, and thank you to all of you. What a nice crowd we have here tonight. We even had every chair full before 8 o'clock. I'm not used to Jews coming on time. We've had a very powerful effect on this group, Rabbi. Very, very impressive. So as you heard from the introduction, thank God I've been all over the world speaking about Israel. You know, I spoke in the synagogue in Hawaii that trademarked the word shaloha. And the synagogue in Alaska that trademarked the words frozen chosen. And now I'm really happy to be over here back in America where the politics are more calm than back home. Or maybe not. So I know we have Israelis in the room, so you know that just like Eskimos have a lot of different words that mean snow, but they all mean a little bit different. In Hebrew, we have a lot of different words that all mean happiness. And they all have a little bit of a different nuance. So, Gil is the kind of happiness that you get from getting good news. My parents named me Gil because I had sisters. They were happy to finally get a boy. But little did they know that they had a journalist on their hands. And so simcha is the kind of happiness that you can have all the time. It's a mitzvah to have simcha all the time. Gil, that's the challenge. Gil means getting happiness from good news, looking at your spouse that you've had for 30, 40 years, and looking at her the same way you did when you first set your eyes on her. Looking at your children that are no longer cute, and looking at them as if they still were. So my blessing to you is that you can look at everything through fresh eyes and have that kind of Gil in your life. And so we're celebrating. I'm celebrating here. This is the anniversary this week of 2 of the most exciting events in my life. One was the Cubs winning the World Series. And the other one was my daughter being born. I actually, after making Aliyah from Chicago 20 years ago, I, every year, went back to Chicago in October just in case the Cubs would be in the World Series. Every year except 2016. Because that spring, I told my wife, of course I'm going to be in Chicago in October. And she said, not this year. This year we have a different miracle on the way. And so my daughter was born during Game 6 of the World Series, which was very nice of her because that was a game that we took a lead very early on, so I could turn the TV off in the hospital, help deliver a baby, and then watch the end of the game with my daughter. And then since then, this little girl has woken me up for the 9th inning of every game, day or night, no matter what time. We are here at an exciting time when there is so much going on. And I've been telling people all on this trip. I arrived last Friday in America, and I've since then spoken in Austin, Texas, Chicago, Lake Tahoe, Las Vegas, San Diego, Irvine, Santa Barbara, Tarzana, and here I am. And tomorrow I'm going to be in LA, and then I'm going to be in Pensacola, Florida, Montgomery, Alabama, Allentown in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, up and down New Jersey, and Winnipeg before I get to go home. A week from tomorrow I leave. So I'm somehow going to be squeezing that all in because there's so much to talk about when it comes to what's going on in Israel. When I come home, then I'm going to get really busy with the real work. My job is to follow around these 120 people. These are our members of Knesset smiling at you. These are the people who think they run our country. You know, who really runs our country. One is Hashem, one is Hashem. So it's a little bit more complicated than it is in America, where you have only 2 messed up political parties. In Israel, we had 29 parties in our election in September, which was down from 40 parties in our election in April. That makes it pretty hard to govern. No one party has ever gotten a majority of the vote to run the country by themselves. We had 9 parties that got the minimum number of votes to get in, about 140,000 votes. And in order to govern, you really need to get 61 out of 120. You need to get more than half the people on this piece of paper getting along at any given point. That's not easy. I'll tell you a secret. Jews are argumentative people. This is where someone usually shouts out, "No, we're not." See, there we go. People think I assigned someone to say that, but someone says it every speech. So I'm going to take you back. I'm sure when you have speakers about Israel in this room, when they say I'm going to take you back through history, they take you back really far, to 3,000 years. I'm going to take you all the way back to last December. Last December, our Speaker of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein, announced with great fanfare that he was going to end the proceedings of the Knesset early on December 24th in honor of Christmas, as a gesture to the Christian members of Knesset. But he forgot that all Christian members of Knesset are Orthodox Christians and therefore celebrate Christmas on the 7th of January. So the only person who was going to be benefiting from this decision was going to be me, because I celebrate my American Jewish heritage by going to a movie and eating Chinese food that night. And so little did we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu was going to initiate an election that day. The election day for Israel was supposed to be Tuesday, November 5th, which is tomorrow. You know, you have election day tomorrow. People forget that it's nothing important, really. But there is... what?
For governor.
You have election for governor tomorrow?
No.
Oh, cool. No? states, got it. Okay. So tomorrow is election day in America. And we were supposed to have our elections the same day. And little did we know back then we might end up having 3 elections for the price of 3, which is not a bargain. So how did we get here? Well, Netanyahu initiated that election thinking he's going to easily get 61 members of Knesset on the right and be able to form a government easily. And you know what? He not only got 61, he got 65. But little did he know that Avigdor Lieberman, who is former foreign minister, former defense minister, would stick a knife in his back. And yet people still thought by the last minute something would happen, an election would be avoided. I remember I was there at the Knesset waiting for the Likud's negotiating team to arrive at the door. And when the head of the negotiating team was arriving at the door, I gave him a thumbs up like this, thinking he would tell me that there's some kind of last minute deal. And he gave me a thumbs down. And then I tweeted it. And that's how people around the world found out that we would be going to a second election. It could have been that we could have had somebody else form a government, but Netanyahu chose to initiate an election instead. And so we did, September 17th. Now, this election was different because we have never had an election in the summer before. And Israelis in the summer, they like to relax. They like to spend time with their children. They don't really turn on the news very much. And so I've never had an election before that was so ignored by the people. The parties didn't even bother campaigning. They took out billboards in Cyprus and Greece, where Israelis vacation, instead of taking them out in Tel Aviv and Haifa. I'd never seen such a thing. And I'm telling you, I thought for sure our turnout is going to be the lowest ever. The beaches were packed with people on election day. It was a beautiful day. The malls looked like Grand Central Station. And I thought, no way. I thought we were going to have the lowest turnout. And the turnout ended up being 70%. We actually had a higher turnout in September than we had in April. I was shocked. Keep in mind, I'm from Chicago, where we had an election for mayor a few months ago where the turnout was only 33%. And half those people were dead. So the results this time were that Netanyahu wanted to get 61 without Lieberman after getting 60 last time. He only needed to get one more seat. He ended up with 55, which is certainly not close enough to be able to form a government. And yet the president still did appoint him to form a government. We have a president in Israel, Reuven Rivlin, who plays a largely ceremonial role, like the Queen of England, but younger. He's only 80. And so his job is to appoint people to form a government. And so he initially asked Netanyahu, he gave him 28 days. He did not succeed during that time. Then he asked Benny Gantz, the leader of the Blue and White Party, and there are 15 days left for Gantz to form a government. It is not looking like he will succeed. And then there would be 21 more days in which any Knesset member can sign up 61 members of Knesset on a piece of paper and then be able to form the government. If no one forms a government during those 21 days, well then, we automatically will have a third election. Then last Tuesday before the 90 days end, which happens to fall on Purim, which I think would be very fitting. A farce is a farce is a farce. I think we could, I'm seriously considering going to your costume stores here, which I'm told I have a clearance sale right now, and buying some Trump outfits that the politicians in Israel could use if we do end up having an election. Then I don't think that we will. I really don't. I think that at the last minute some kind of solution can be found. There are 3 possible governments. First of all, there can still be a right-wing government. Avigdor Lieberman could still, he could do tshuva and decide he will let Netanyahu form a government of the right, 63 seats, no problem. And the nightly news tonight in Israel led with the news that Lieberman is seriously considering what his options are because he doesn't want there to be a third election. Another possibility is a minority government where you could have all the left-wing parties together, blue and white, Labor Gesher, the Democratic Union, formerly Meretz, with the Arab parties supporting from outside, which would be a very challenging situation for Israel. The Arabs refuse to join a government because they don't have collective responsibility if Israel chooses to attack their brothers. But they are willing to support a government from outside and receive the funding as if they did join the government. So that is a pretty unlikely scenario, but a scenario it is. The most likely scenario remains that a unity government will be formed, where Likud and blue and white will govern the country together. Who goes first? Well, that will likely be decided by the Attorney General. The Attorney General has a big decision to make on Netanyahu's cases in the next month. And if he decides that there is a bribery charge, then chances are Benny Gantz will form the government. And if he decides there is no bribery charge, chances are that Netanyahu will form the government. Simple as that. And there will be tremendous pressure on Netanyahu and Gantz to make a compromise during those 21 days and build a government then. And that is the most likely scenario to happen. And whoever ends up forming a government will then have to deal with the very serious challenges that Israel is facing. They being diplomatic challenges, security challenges, relations with American Jews, matters of religion and state, and getting along better. All of that will have to be done, whether the Prime Minister is going to be Netanyahu, somebody else in Likud, or Benny Gantz. So let's start with the diplomatic issue. There has been a plan that has been worked on now for more than 2 years, mainly by two people. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed, and the Crown Prince of America, Jared. This plan basically says that in return for whatever Israel gives up, Israel would receive normalization with the entire Arab and Muslim world that's not aligned with Iran. You don't have to squint if you're in the back. The yellow countries are the ones that don't like us very much, okay? Just the yellow ones. So we would receive normalization with any country that's not aligned with Iran. In return for whatever the Palestinians give up, they would receive, according to this plan, mass investment from around the world, more than $100 billion to build up infrastructure, to build up whatever entity the Palestinians would have. The Palestinians are expected to say no to any plan proposed by the Trump administration. If they say no, I myself will accept the $100 billion on their behalf and put it to good use. But just presenting this plan already has an impact, because we've been hearing people say in Israel for 20 years the words, everybody knows where the final borders are going to be. And it was what Bill Clinton presented at Camp David, that Ehud Barak accepted and Yasser Arafat ran away from and started an intifada. But it's not true. If there is a new plan presented, and this plan is expected to say that no Jew in Judea and Samaria has to leave his home, that plan will always be there. No matter who the Prime Minister of Israel is, and no matter who the President of the United States is, and no matter who the Palestinian leader is as well. Keep in mind, Netanyahu says that unlike in other places in the world, when it comes to making a peace process move forward, in Israel, it takes 3 to tango. Well, let's think about who's in that dance. You have an Israeli Prime Minister facing possible indictment. You have an American president who is divisive. and you have a Palestinian leader who is on death's door. Mahmoud Abbas was elected in January 2005 to a 4-year term. He is now in his 15th year of that 4-year term. In part because the international community is terrified that if they have an election, the Hamas would win. And that's what the polls say. The polls funded by the European Union, taken by a very respected, very professional Palestinian pollster, find that a majority of Palestinians are in favor of not 2 states for 2 peoples, only one state, an Arab state with no Jew in it like Saudi Arabia, wiping Israel off the map. That is true. A majority of Israelis are in favor of 2 states for 2 peoples, though a lot less than there used to be. That's what happens when you have years and years of suicide bombers and shootings and stabbings and car rammings and terror tunnels underground and in the sky, mortars and rockets and incendiary kites. The Japanese gave the children of Gaza 10,000 kites for them to have what to play with. Little did they know it would be used as terror weapons. And so don't be surprised if all of that happened, that Israelis don't think the next thing that's going to fly over the border from Gaza is going to be a white dove. And so Israelis certainly did move to the right. And now Mahmoud Abbas, he's 83 years old. He has been chain smoking 2 packs a day for 70 years. He's a wonder of medical science that he's still alive today. And he has had heart problems lately. I wonder why. And so that certainly makes it harder for there to be a peace process. But there is one thing that has changed that gives that process a chance, which is Saudi Arabia. Okay, every American president who's had a peace plan has wanted the Saudis to take a leading role. If you remember, Barack Obama begged them, and they said no. The first trip abroad by the current president of the United States was to Saudi Arabia in order to bring them on board in a peace process. And they said no. But something's changed. About a year ago, they made a very bad mistake that I hope you don't make over the next half hour. They killed a Middle Eastern journalist. Don't do it, no matter how much you want to. And so this makes the Saudis more beholden than ever to the administration in Washington, who kept them in power, who kept them alive, and who want them to be very involved in a peace plan that basically says, in return for whatever Israel gives up, Israel would receive normalization with Saudi Arabia and its allies. And in return for whatever the Palestinians give up, they would receive money from Saudi Arabia and its allies. And the Saudis right now are very upset with America because there was a precision-guided missile attack by Iran on the Saudi oil fields and refineries, and America did nothing. So Jared Kushner was just there trying to reassure them. He came to Israel to tell both Gantz and Netanyahu that the moment they form a government, the peace plan is going to be presented. And then he went straight to Saudi Arabia to tell them, you can count on us. And the Saudis don't really believe it. And especially after the American army left Syria, or did they? Still figuring that out. Abandoning the Kurds, that sent a message throughout the Middle East that maybe America can't be counted on anymore. There was a poll taken this week by the Israel Democracy Institute that asked Israelis, do you think that the security of Israel is a central consideration when determining American foreign policy? Only 36% said yes, after that number was more than 60% a year and a half ago. So it made Israelis consider, did they make a mistake in putting their eggs in the basket of America? And I talked to Israeli officials before this trip, and they told me absolutely not. you have to have gratitude, hakarat tov, to an administration that did what it did, that recognized Jerusalem as our capital, that moved the embassy to Jerusalem. I happen to live across the street from that embassy. The day that I moved in August, they started knocking down the fence in front of the embassy and building a wall. Could not make that up. And an administration in Washington that recognized Israeli control over the Golan Heights, so it won't have to be given to a crazy person that murdered its people. And we have to be especially appreciative of what happened in the United Nations, changing a little bit. The darkness. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said that the UN is a place of darkness. He told Netanyahu that he has to be the one to bring light. And so little by little, we have to be appreciative of things changing over there. The President of the United States promised when he campaigned that the moment he becomes president, that Israel will no longer be delegitimified, which is not a word, but that promise has been kept, and we have to be very thankful for that. So now we are looking forward to dealing with these security challenges. There was a briefing by the Chief of Staff of the IDF, Aviv Kochavi, his first briefing since entering that job just a week and a half ago, where he warned that the situation is very, very fragile and tense. That right now Iran has been emboldened by the successful attack in Saudi Arabia. That Turkey has been emboldened by receiving more power in Syria. That Hamas has been emboldened. And you saw the response of that. This wasn't Hamas, it was Islamic Jihad, but 11 rockets fired on Friday, including one that made a 65-year-old woman have to go to the hospital because she hurt herself on the way to the bomb shelter. The rocket fell in a yard, and the people are alive today because they were in their bomb shelter. And the little 5-year-old girl, a picture of her frightened on the ground, was on the cover of all the papers. And while Israel did retaliate, and continues to retaliate, when there are weapons shipments from Iran through Iraq to Syria or Lebanon, Israel is more limited than it has been in a long time when it comes to retaliating. Because we don't want to give any excuse to Iran to escalate the situation. Aviv Kochavi said in that briefing that we are one miscalculation away from all-out war. And so our hands are more tied than before. We don't want to see precision-guided missiles used against Israel against a target, for instance, like the nuclear facility that Israel may or may not have in Dimona, where my uncle Shmulik may or may not work, and he may or may not exist. And there are plenty of other targets that they could hit as well. They have attacked Israel over the last 2 months from Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And Netanyahu gave a briefing last week, where he said in the future they'll be able to attack us also from Yemen. So we have to very much be on our toes and continue to do what we have to do to prevent Iran from being able to build a crescent from Iran through Iraq to Syria and Lebanon, from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. This is what the Prime Minister of Israel is going to have to deal with. The people of Israel have been persuaded that Netanyahu is the only person who can do that, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to stay in power. The reminder that we've gotten is that with all due respect to whatever alliances we have around the world, in the end we can only rely on ourselves and on Avinu Shebashamayim. He provides us the protection, and we also have to rely on your prayers, as people who I know care so deeply about what's going on in Israel. The fact that you come out on a night like this when there's probably so much fun to be had over here in Agora Hills? I didn't think that it was a joke, but okay. Is Chabad really the funnest place in your... Okay.
Pretty much.
Good to know. So this is really a time that we need to have unity. Unity among the people. I'm not going to give an opinion on what government will have. I really mean unity among the people. When we've been fighting for 10 months now. And we've had our share of politics. And in Israel, America doesn't have this advantage. But in Israel, we have threats that unite us. That's why America is so polarized today, because you don't have anything like that. But we do. And when we have outside threats that unite the people of Israel, it's pretty amazing to see how we go from divided to united so quickly. Now, I wish there would be other things that would unite us better. When we win Olympic medals, that unites us too. That's a lot better reason. When we won the Eurovision Song Contest, that was a reason to unite us. When we were praying for landing on the moon, that was something that united us. We did land on the moon very, very fast. The rabbi said I have to work in the word falafel. Falafel unites us, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know where the best falafel stand is. But I can tell you that when we have holidays, we unite in a beautiful kind of way. My favorite, the funnest holiday in Israel is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, when no one drives. There is no law in Israel saying you can't drive on Yom Kippur. No one drives. And the streets are packed with people after services. It's really incredible that night. The streets are full of children on their little bimba cars going up and down the hills. My daughter just turned 3. That night, I was chasing her up and down those hills because there's no cars around. I've never needed to drink so much in my life. Chasing after that little girl. And Pesach unites us in a beautiful kind of way also. On that, when you go grocery shopping on Pesach, they give you a huge box of matzah. And you know what? Then on Pesach itself, all the restaurants are open. We go to McDonald's on the second night of Pesach when you have another Seder. It says kosher for Pesach. I don't know what the bun is made out of. I don't care. And then we go to Pizza Hut. I don't care what it's made out of. It tastes like pizza. And we go to the pasta restaurant. They're open. It's kosher for Pesach. What it's made out of, I don't care. And then at the end of Pesach, I look at that box that has 246 matzahs left in it. And I make a dance floor with that matzah. And I have my children and all their friends dance on that matzah and what we call matzah nastics. So these are the kind of joys we have. I started the talk with my children. I'm ending the talk with my children because the children are the future. The children are the hope. And the education is the key. So I hope and pray that my children and yours will see a bright future for the people of Israel and our neighbors, and also for America. Thank you very much. So we have plenty of time for questions, especially with such a large group. Feel free to ask anything that there is on your mind. Please say your name before you ask a question, and I will repeat every question. Your hand went up first, sir.
Yes. Jerry Elmer from Calabasas. And my question is, I understand that Netanyahu is facing the possibility of indictment. But somehow Well, I believe that the reason for the division among the voters of Israel has to be something more than just that indictment. Is there anything else that divides the people so much?
Netanyahu is a divisive figure, just like Donald Trump is a divisive figure. He has riled up the masses against the media, and a lot of people don't like that. He has these investigations that look very bad to a lot of people. And that makes the people very upset. It's created an image of him, rightly or wrongly, as a hedonist, as someone who's taken things that don't belong to him. He already has an indictment for bribery pending the hearing that he just had. Now, he believes that this hearing will end up letting him out because there were American legal experts who came and said that receiving positive news coverage is not bribery. And if he gets indicted for bribery, then it's setting an international precedent. So, Jerry, but these cases that have gotten very negative press have made Israelis upset at him. 2/3 of Israelis say if he gets indicted, he has to quit. So that has had a very serious effect, and compounded with the people that disagree with his policies on security, diplomacy, matters of religion and state, etc.
My name is Simon Mustafa. I live in Agoro Park. Don't you believe that the price that you pay right now, the previous administration gave $150 billion to Iran, emboldened right now, and you have no control of that?
Does America have no control over Iran? No, I think they do have control in that they put these sanctions on. Iran has already decided.
Where the money went?
Where the money went, we don't.
Hamas, Hezbollah, Yemen.
Yes, the money went to kill people. The money, that's true. The international community, and 85% of Israelis were very much against the deal that the world reached with Iran, which for me as a political analyst was fascinating. Never seen 85% of Israelis united on anything before. And they were very much united against this deal. You want to add something to that, Sam?
Yes. The second question is, what's happening now if you listen to, who's a young guy, radio talk show, he's a Jewish guy, Shapiro. His surveys say we don't see Jews as Jews anymore. They are getting neutral. They don't care about Israel right now. 60% name is Jews, but they are not really true Jews that care about Israel. What's happening in the United States? You see no Arabs, no Muslim in the White House, the previous administration, the Secretary of State, all over. The money around, even uranium. I was going to Iran. Even Iranian right now is spending so much money, you won't believe it. Mm-hmm. My name is Rustin Farr. I got a call from one of those Arab congresswomen that would you give us some money? I said,
really?
Yes. They say I'm Muslim. So we're paying the prices. Thanks to Obama, $850 billion to Iran and Zarif and Kerry, their bodies, because they're...
So these are all very serious concerns. What Simon raises about young American Jews is something that we have to be extremely worried about. The positives, though, after plenty of negatives of all the poll numbers showing them less connected, is that Birthright Israel is definitely having an impact, so it could be worse. And the follow-up programs to Birthright, I speak to every Hasbara Fellowships group that goes to Israel. These are groups that twice a year come for training for Israel advocacy on college campuses. These become the leaders of the Israel movements on college campuses. And I see how when they come, they don't really know so much. And then I see them on their campuses after they've been through this training, that they're amazing in terms of defending Israel within the conflict, beyond the conflict, being proactive and reactive. I give the training on selling Israel as a democracy, which I think is an important selling point. There are other security experts and experts on the Palestinians and everything that they talk to, which all helps. And so I can tell you, I've spoken on college campuses all over America. Spoken to the dogs for Israel, the hogs for Israel, the dragons for Israel, the slugs for Israel. I just came here from the University of California, Santa Barbara, where they have students supporting Israel campus. Team on campus that's doing very well, and this gives me hope. But there is still very much a lot of work to be done.
I recommend to watch or see the movie by Alan Toro and Dennis Prager.
Okay.
There is no
I'm going to take other questions now.
There is no safe spaces anymore. This movie's coming.
I haven't called on a woman yet. Is there a woman with a question? Yes, all the way there in the back. Hello.
Hi. My name is Christine. I have a question about what that song on road songs and clouds.
I'm sorry, I don't know that one.
Okay. There is the American yacht Israel fighter pilot. It's a really interesting book in terms of analyzing the way that we continually dilute our Judaism and fabricating connections to people around what that we will basically be out of extinction ourselves.
Wow.
It might be something worthwhile.
Sure.
But he has a positive outlook in terms of dealing with youth and with our future, with our children and our future. And what I'm interested in, because I know he had asked about American Jewry, but what is your take being on both sides?
Sure.
You come and look at what's going on now on the West College campuses, even younger than that, within the grades I teach, within grade schools, and also
Okay, now you've raised a lot of things to swallow here. Okay, so first of all, the comparison between Israel and American youth, numbers-wise, the younger you are in Israel, the more right-wing you are, and the more religiously observant you are. That's what happens. Haredim, ultra-Orthodox have a lot of kids. It's the opposite of America, right? Polls in America show that the younger you are, the more left-wing you are, and the less religiously observant you are, in general, and even more so among the Jews. But you know what? I think those statistics aren't really fair. Because one of the ways that they don't have a lot of ways, of checking religiosity is synagogue membership. Well, synagogue membership used to be very easy to monitor when people went to Reform and Conservative synagogues. Well, now people go to Chabad, and they don't have membership as much in Chabad. People just come, and they're welcomed very warmly. And that's the trend all over America. You know, I've seen synagogue after synagogue. I'm booked by the conservative synagogue to speak, and then I see what's going on in the Chabad, and they have 10 times as many people in a much smaller building. But they know how to reach out to people better, especially the younger people. And so maybe it's not really fair because of Chabad. I blame Chabad.
You've been patient. I was wondering if you could explain really what blue and white, what their policies are, what they stand for. Because I don't quite get what Gantz is talking about. He just talks about feelings and emotions and stuff, but I don't see any platforms. I don't see any objectives. I don't see any goals, as opposed to Likud that has them. And how would you compare blue and white's position of whether Israel should annex, I think, Area C, as opposed to blue and white's position on that issue too?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. Neither Likud nor blue and white have a platform. they have not had a platform in Likud for 15 years now. And yet you think you know what Likud stands for because you've been watching Netanyahu nonstop. And the Likud's policies are his policies. The truth is, though, that Netanyahu is in favor of a Palestinian state, has never rescinded his being in favor of a Palestinian state. I was at Bar-Ilan University when he came out in favor of a Palestinian state, whereas everybody else in the Likud is opposed to it in the Likud faction. So in that regard, is it Likud or is it Netanyahu? It's Netanyahu. Whereas actually Blue and White has never said they're in favor of a Palestinian state. Then again, they haven't said anything. You don't know what they're in favor of. I don't either. And I've covered them from the day one. And I've interviewed Benny Gantz. Look, I remember it like it was yesterday because I learned in journalism school at Northwestern that when you interview someone, you're supposed to interview them at eye level. Well, Benny's 6'5". I came into the room, I saw that they put him on a firm chair and me on a comfy couch. I took all 6 pillows on the couch and I stacked them up and I sat on all of them when I interviewed him. The picture's there on social media. I emerged from the interview still not knowing exactly what he stands for. Not on the diplomatic issue, not on the security issue, not on the economic issue. And I think that is absolutely brilliant politics. Anyone here interested in going into politics? Well, my advice to you is never get an opinion on anything. Because if you get an opinion, someone is liable to have a different opinion. And then they'll disagree with you. And then they won't vote for you. Bad idea. Stay away from those opinions. That advice was in the Broadway play Hamilton. Talk less, smile more, never tell them what you stand for. So that is very good advice. It's working. But then what will happen if he takes over? We don't know. We have no idea. Yes?
Thank you. My name is Jim Weintraub. I'm in Thousand My questions are, from a more of a 3,000 feet overview, looking at Iran and Saudi Arabia. With Iran, is there any realistic expectation of regime change peacefully? And is there any expectation of a military success? And with Saudi Arabia, even if there are quote-unquote allies, they still have madrasas preaching Wahhabism, and all the people who were 9/11 were Saudis, and I still don't know the relationship. Okay. So, if you have any thoughts on those countries.
So, we do not have evidence of rebellion going on in Iran right now, certainly not in a serious kind of way. When there was one, the Green Revolution, when America did not support it, Natan Sharansky at the time called it the biggest failure to help human rights in the history of mankind. And too bad, right, Simon? Now, look, what's happening in Lebanon could spread, is the hope. I mean, when I was talking to Israeli security officials before coming here, and of course they give me all these doomsday scenarios and everything, and I tell them that I like giving people hope. What's the hope? And they said, well, don't tell anybody it comes from us, but we look at what's going on in Lebanon in a hopeful kind of way. That was actually right before Said Hariri quit. And when Said Hariri, the president of Lebanon, quit, what they did was they made the protests be against Hezbollah and only Hezbollah, which means against Iran. So there's hope that there can be more anti-Iran protests, that one thing can lead to another, and that you could have regime change. Sanctions are there, and they're having an impact, and Little by little, sometimes we have to be patient. Now, Saudi Arabia, yeah, you're right. They're not exactly the friends we'd want to have. But they're the enemy of your enemy is your friend, and we take what we can get. You had a question over here? You want me to come back later?
I would just like to tell that I know the situation in Israel is not very nice now, but I remember when I came here in 1980, it means I moved from Israel to America, and the situation in Israel was worse than now.
Sure.
And after that, it was so wonderful. I'm here 40 years, and the situation has been better and better and better. It doesn't matter what happens. They have to pray and ask Hashem to help. That's what we can do.
Ask Hashem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's what we do.
The person in purple has been waiting.
Mike Pinchak from Flora Hills. China has been using its economic influence around the world, including support in Haifa. The United States is strongly opposed to the overwhelming apparent Chinese influence there. What is Israel doing?
Christine, don't leave yet. You asked a question about BDS that I didn't get to among the 4 questions that you asked. So first I'll answer the question about China and then about BDS. So about China, Israel, interestingly, it's not making very many decisions right now in the government because it's paralyzed. They cannot allocate any funding, for instance. So because of that, many causes that are important, like helping elderly and children, Holocaust survivors, and handicapped, are put on hold. Public transportation, programs on Hanukkah. What did the government decide? To form a committee that required anything involving China to go through a layer of bureaucracy that will make it difficult. Which is very interesting because Israeli trade with China has been skyrocketing. Just like Israeli trade with India and Japan and Korea and Taiwan and Hong Kong. And it is about to pass the European Union as our largest trading partner, which will be fascinating when it happens, because it'll be proof that Europe, when it deals with politics, Asia deals with business. And they don't get into the politics. And that's why they're so successful. But because of American pressure, specifically from the White House, now our trade with China will be, I guess, somewhat less. Regarding BDS, Christine. Every year, I brief the credit agencies, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Moody's, when they come to Israel. I give them a briefing similar to this one. And every year, I make a point of asking them one question. I ask them, what has been the impact of the effort to boycott, divest from, and sanction Israel on the Israeli economy? And every year, they tell me, we studied that in great depth. And every year they come to the conclusion that the impact of BDS on the Israeli economy is nil. I first had to look up the word nil. It means zero in British, the soccer term. And these are not Zionists. These are cold British economists. And so they've come to the conclusion that BDS does not impact the Israeli economy. What do they impact? They make Jews feel scared to be Jewish on college campuses. All they do is scare children. That's all they accomplish. And they do it quite well. Everything else they fail at. They're a pathetic failure. They try to stop people from buying Israeli oranges, and then Apple will buy an Israeli company for $1 billion. So I'll tell you one more BDS story before I'll let you go. The last time they took me out by the staff of the Jerusalem Post, he pointed a finger at us and he said, "You're getting it all wrong." Can you imagine a politician telling journalists that they're getting things wrong? Where does that happen? He said, you're focusing on the wrong 3 letters. On BDNS. He said the real trend in international diplomacy is actually TNT. What does TNT stand for, Mr. Prime Minister? He said that when he meets with foreign leaders, then they ask about the Palestinians the first minute or a half or so. And then they change the subject to what they really want to talk about. The first T stands for? Technology. They want to learn from Israel how to become the startup nation. Last time I saw my friend Saul Singer, who wrote that book, my former colleague in the Jerusalem Post, it was at the airport in Hong Kong when I was on the way back from speaking at the Chabad of Sydney dinner, and he was on the way back from speaking in China for the 8th time since he wrote that book. They want to learn from Israeli innovation. The other T stands for?
Trade.
No. No.
Tourism?
No. Someone say Talmud? That's really beautiful, but no. Terror, unfortunately, yeah. They want to learn from Israel how to fight terror. Too much experience. The end nobody gets, so I'm not going to make you guess. The end is natural gas. You know, if I could summarize the history of the Middle East over the last 70 years in one sentence, it's the world has been kissing the tushy of these countries in the Middle East that have oil. If I could summarize the history of the next 70 years, I will say the world will be kissing our tushy. Because we've discovered natural gas off the coast of the Mediterranean, and we will be sharing it with our neighbors and building the largest pipeline in the world to Europe, and that will change the world dramatically. You're now allowed to leave us.
Oh, do I get to take this? Hi, Anthony Angelini, Westlake Village. I want to piggyback off of the China comment that gentleman made.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Kushner peace plan as largely dependent on the ability of the Israelis to form a government. You also cited a poll in the West Bank, I believe, it's a year old, about how if the election was held today, then Hamas would get elected.
No, it's every 3 months they take the poll.
Every 3 months they take the same poll, right?
Yes.
Is there any reason to... Okay, so Chinese economic investment in the West Bank has actually gone up as well.
Interesting.
And to what extent do you believe that this $100 billion that we promised the Palestinians...
The world promised.
The world promises. They're not still investing in that region or in regions that will be economically beneficial to the Palestinians. Anyway, regardless if America's involved or Jared Kushner's involved or any of that. You know what I'm saying?
A little bit, Anthony.
This $100 billion it's not entirely dependent on the United States. It's not dependent on Kushner's plan. These other countries can still invest in the West Bank without us.
But
especially China.
But to what extent is it really happening? I mean, this is the first...
Well, China's investing around the world, especially in impoverished places, and in these places in the West Bank, they're building bridges and they're giving no strings attached humanitarian aid. So how could that not transfer into economic investment, tech investment?
I will be the first and last Israeli who you will see say the words, I don't know. Anthony, have you been to Israel?
Yeah.
So, have you asked Israelis for directions?
No. Why?
If you ask Israelis for directions, Anthony, they'll tell you to go straight, whether they know or not. That's Israelis. But I'm telling you, I have no idea.
Thank you. Michael Maynard, Portugal. My question is related to what we talked about a little bit, Iran. So over the last few weeks, I read several very ominous sounding articles about Iran, and just yesterday, the one by Michael Oren, former ambassador. I don't know if you read that.
I read it flowers ago.
Yeah, it sounds really ominous. Like I said,
The Atlantic Monthly. Atlantic.
Yeah, basically saying the war is almost imminent, based on Iranian provocations and lack of pushback, and they shut down $200 million American drone, no response, and attacking Saudis, etc., etc. And the timing for them to do something is almost perfect, so that they have all their ducks in a row before, anybody wakes up and tries to push back. My question is, what's the mood in Israel? How do you feel as Israeli? I mean, is this overblown? This alarmism?
Thank you.
First of all, I'm going to tell Michael that you know his article by heart. Yeah, he's going to be very impressed by that. Michael's a good guy. I talk to him all the time, and he was one of the people I talked to get ready for this trip. And the mood in Israel regarding Iran is very ominous, absolutely. Since, I'll tell you, it kind of took Israelis by surprise, because over the last few months, whenever there's been any security developments, we've seen it through political eyes. Oh, Netanyahu is just doing that because he wants to form a government, or to show that the people of Israel, that they need him. And then, when the chief of staff gave that briefing, it changed everything. I'm telling you, the briefing was on a Wednesday, it was embargoed till Thursday, and on Thursday afternoon, I spoke to the night editor at the Jerusalem Post, and he said to me, "You're writing the lead to the paper." And I said, "I'm telling you, I'm not. I've written the lead to the paper every day for 7-8 months. Tonight, I'm not. Tonight, the military reporter is writing the lead to the paper." And he didn't get it. He said, "Well, we'll watch the nightly news, and then we'll see." And the nightly news led with the military on all 3 channels. And you know what? It's led with the military since then pretty much every night. Unless they had legal developments. But still, it's taken time to sink in. Because I normally don't watch the Friday night news magazine that there is on TV in Israel. But it was on at 1 o'clock Texas time when I got here. And I saw how they led with political and legal developments, and then they went to the military analyst. And he said, "You went to me too late, you don't get it yet." He was like angry at the host of the panel, and saying, "You'll understand." And since then, he was right. They've been focusing on, unfortunately, rocket attacks especially. The military issue is now the lead to the nightly news every night. And so, yes, we're taking it very, very seriously. And it's making our politicians, who are still focused on themselves, look even more ridiculous.
One more quick one. Israel was attacked in the last couple of months by Iran.
And since the end of August. And there was one weekend at the end of August where we were attacked by Iran from 3 different places. One weekend. Why do you hear it? Because they weren't successful. When Israel stymies the attack, then it doesn't make the news. But it happened. Only when there's significant retaliation, then you hear it. Or if they're especially successful.
Well, to kind of add to
Art Norton from West Village. Going a little bit more from what you said, Iran is moving towards getting a nuclear weapon. I don't personally know how close. I know that Israel stole a lot of documents, and it was telling, but Israel kind of ignored it. At what point in time is somebody's hand going to be forced, or would a confrontation be way before that? You can do these scenarios.
Iran is still more than a year away from getting the bomb, even if they've continued enriching uranium. And so we don't have to worry about that quite yet. But what would happen if there's a different president of the United States who doesn't see that as a priority? And makes deals or returns deals that allow Iran to get closer to a bomb. Then that is when it would become much more serious. And then if there's not full coordination between the Israeli army and the American army, between the Israeli Prime Minister and the American President, that's when Israel would have to start thinking again about going on its own. The last time they seriously considered that was in the during the Obama administration.
Yeah. Thank you.
Somebody hasn't asked a question yet. Yes.
Again on Iran, I hear the sanctions are having effect on Iran. If that's true, how long you think
The Iranians are very proud people. Simon can tell you they don't like compromising, and they're part of their dignity is when there are sanctions, they just dig in their heels and they continue to endure. You know, but when the price of rice goes up so much and the price of chicken, they get more and more upset with their leadership. It's going to take time, though.
You get disappointed when there was a riot, this beautiful young lady was killed, assassinated.
Yeah.
Then they said, Obama, are you with us or you're not with us? The Iranian had a big hope that since the guy has some Muslim background, he knows them, so on and so forth, he can help him. But he turned out to be a worse for Iran.
You want another question?
Yeah, I guess when you talk about Iran attacking through its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and
Islamic Jihad.
Islamic Jihad, right? So you're trying to build bases, in the northwestern part of Israel and so on. So, do you know? I know you can't get this part name that's classified, but what is? I wonder just what is Israel contemplating as far as taking the fight directly to Iran and not through proxies? Teach them a lesson. There's no one else in the world seems to be doing it.
If you're talking about an Israeli attack in Iranian soil, I don't expect it happening anytime soon. Do we have a last question? All righty. Sorry for ignoring the back of the room. It's kind of far.
Journalist, what's your thought on leftist bias in both the United States and
Israel? In Israel, I don't know America media so much because I made Aliyah 20 years ago. I don't really get to watch much American media. I get interviewed by American media. I get interviewed by CNN and Al Jazeera all the time. I very rarely am interviewed by Fox, and when I am, it's just kind of funny because they ask really, really easy questions, like softball questions, and I'm not used to that. So I'm used to really tough foreign press. When I'm interviewed during an operation in Gaza on Fox, and their questions are like, "Why don't you just go in and beat the shit out of them?" It's different than what I get in Al Jazeera. I defend Israel, whether it's left wing, right wing. That's my experience with American media. But in Israel, I can tell you it's changing. It used to be that all the media outlets were left wing, and now what? Oh, Netanyahu got his friend Sheldon Adelson to start a newspaper, Israeli owned, that quickly became the largest circulation newspaper in part because it's free, and is a very pro-Netanyahu, very pro-Trump paper. That's the largest circulation paper. We also see how Galei Tzahal Army Radio now has a right-wing host to go with the left-wing host, and Israel Radio then had to do the same thing. And so little by little it's happening. One thing that I can tell you that's very nice, if I want to put in a positive, if I want to end on a more positive, is that we still have in Israel 17 print daily papers. How many do you have here in LA?
Pretty much zero. Nothing.
The largest circulation daily paper is Israeli owned, followed by Yediot Ahronot, which is an anti-Netanyahu bias, followed by Ma'ariv, which is against everyone, followed by two business dailies. The sixth largest circulation newspaper in Israel is Haaretz, only the sixth. Then there's Arabic papers and Russian papers and Haredi, ultra-Orthodox papers. In California, Rabbi Eliezer does not let you use the word ultra-Orthodox. He thinks it's a slur. So I'm going to say Haredi, fervent papers, I guess. There are English papers, of course. The largest circulation English newspaper in Israel is the Jerusalem Post. The smallest circulation English paper in Israel is Haaretz, among the two.
So I'll end with, people always ask me, what can I do to help Israel from where I live? And I tell people that helping Israel is easy. EASY, which stands for education, advocacy, solidarity, and your money. Now, I don't talk about the why, but the other three. Education. Keep on getting your news from Israeli news sources in English, like the Jerusalem Post, www.jpost.com. Download the app if you haven't already. And Gil Hoffman on Twitter. A is for advocacy. Be involved in your pro-Israel movements. We need all the help that we could get.
Come to Israel.
What?
Come to Israel and send your kids to Israel.
Come to Israel, send your kids to Israel. The A is for Aliyah, for sure. And the S is for solidarity, which involves coming to Israel, and it involves coming to events like these. It's absolutely wonderful. And the more informed you are, the better it is for Israel. The more informed you are in Israel, the more informed you are about your Judaism. I think it's wonderful that there's so many classes here. Just like about Israel, about Judaism, the more you learn, the more you realize you still have to learn. And so I encourage people to learn as much as they can about who they are. And the real why is your prayers. Let's pray that there will be a better day ahead for the people of Israel, for our neighbors, and also for America. Thank you very much. Cool. So important. Good for you. Thank you for all you do.
Fellow Chicago.
Yeah.
Where'd you live in Chicago?
In Lincolnwood.
Lincolnwood. I grew up in Highland Park.
Oh, cool.
After my youth in Rogers Park, but Highland Park came to California about 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
At the same time you went to Israel.
My father was already teaching before then at Bethel and Highland Park.
I'll tell you a funny story. I grew up when there was only one Jewish institution on the whole North Shore of Chicago. North Shore Congregation. Rabbi Siskin, if that rings any bells. Any event, when Bethel opened in Highland Park, all the Jews were nervous. Oh my God, real Jews are going to be moving here. Conservative.
That's funny.
I have a question.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
I've been a supporter of Women of the Wall for many years. And I don't know what's going on with any government. Women not being. And I just read about the lawsuit. I just read about the lawsuit.